Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's Fiber Broadband Association webinar. My name is David. I'm the webinar producer here at FBA. We appreciate you taking time to join us today. Today's webinar is Unlocking AI's Full Potential, Why Data Interoperability is the Key. And this is being brought to us today by ETI Software Solutions, and they're being joined today by Core Consults and Entropy. We have panelists from both of them. Before we jump in and get started, though, I just have a couple of quick housekeeping items. We will go through here. So first of all, as attendees, you are in listen-only mode. However, we would love to hear from you today. If you have any questions and want to participate in the conversation, please use the Ask a Question tool, which is located right underneath the media player on your screen. We also have some resources available for you, including an ebook that is some supporting information for this webinar. So I encourage you to check out the Data Interoperability ebook that we have attached there as well, which has been published by ETI. And with that, we'll jump in and let's introduce our panelists here. So today we're joined by Jeff Boozer, who is the VP of Broadband Strategy at ETI Software. And on our panel, we have Don Eben, who is the CEO of Core Consults, and Peter Cresse, the president of Entropy. And as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about why data interoperability is key to realizing AI's full potential. And with that, I'm going to get out of your way here and hand things over to Jeff to get us started. So Jeff, take it away.
Thanks, David. And thanks for joining us for this discussion about AI and how data integration are important to success. As David mentioned, we have a panel of experts on the topic with us. And I'd like to give each one of them a quick moment to introduce themselves and give you a little background info. Don, would you like to start?
Sure, thank you. Hello, nice to meet you all. My name is Don Eben. Been in the industry 30 years, actually this fall. Working for telecom companies in the past 12 years, actually doing consulting. At Core, we work with small and medium-sized businesses, helping them both plan and execute, creating an IT strategy that helps them grow and realize what they're trying to do, and help them execute and achieve that over time. Thank you.
Peter?
Everybody, I'm Peter Cresse. I'm president of Entropy. Entropy is a company that looks at technical transformation, and most recently been working in data systems and AI. And we're helping companies sort that out as they go on their AI journey. Entropy's provided reports to cities, organizations, and most recently to Fiber Broadband Association for a lot of the AI baseline that we're going to do. So I'm delighted to join, and back to you, Jeff.
Thanks, Peter. And I'm Jeff Boozer. As mentioned, I'm VP of Broadband Strategy at ETI Software. ETI Software provides provisioning, infrastructure management, and data management solutions for the broadband industry. I've got 30 plus years in telecom, including cable TV, wireless, convergence, and broadband, experience in operations, marketing, and business development. And I've worked for service providers, systems integrators, and software providers. So yeah, we've got a little bit of a good background here amongst everybody. So I'd like to maybe start out with just a few statistics to frame the context and the discussion we're going to have today. These stats are from some recent studies done by MIT and McKinsey Consulting. First one, 95% of Gen AI initiatives fail to deliver any returns. Only 5% of pilots made it to production. The most common reason stated, poor data infrastructure, 52%. Less than 50% of ISPs have sufficient data quality to support AI use cases. And for some context, spending on software integration has surged by 15% annually for the past 5 years. In 2024, it was $4.5 billion. And another interesting statistic, 67% of the successful AI initiatives used external partnerships in their deployment. These stats paint a pretty clear picture of the opportunity and the challenge we have. So let's get into it. Peter, can you explain how AI works with data and why the quality of that data matters so much?
Sure. The perspective of data is it's the most important decision under the control of the CEO and the staff. Data isn't very interesting to some, but it is the most important asset. So I'd like to show a few charts that David will bring up here pretty soon to prove the point. So let's go to those as I give the introduction on data. Now, data is a multi-billion-dollar industry, but it's really getting the data kitted out for interoperability and AI. So the first point that I want to make is that where are we today? As Jeffrey mentioned, most of the projects fail because people haven't sorted out their data concerns. They haven't really transitioned. So data for machine learning and cloud are what we have today. And those are data sets that are fed into algorithms that do regression, classification, things like that, shown on the left. So it's really a game of how cloud works with the data to do classic machine learning and use a machine to make it go faster. But that is quickly becoming outdated because of the speed, the latency, many different reasons. So we're kind of trapped right now on a data and machine learning and cloud. The data quality is really important. But moving ahead to use the power of models, let's go to the next chart and just take a thinking about what is happening on the AI side. Next. There's a new data workflow for AI. Shown on the left are RAG data, retrieval augmented generative data you've heard a lot about. It's just data that can augment your prompts, index data, massive amounts of data, and then taking all that data and creating a vector, creating tokens from that. Last week, the CEO of NVIDIA said that NVIDIA is in the business of creating token factories. So when we think of data in the AI realm right now, we really need to think about data as it relates to the cost basis of a token. And all a token is a way of chunking down sentences and words so it's easier to be manageable in a vector database. As we move across, we can see that that feeds the model. And so what right now is happening is data, quality data has to be there, because if you're going to feed a model, you can't feed a model with a whole bunch of data because it's too costly. So there's a big fit going on between learning models. And you've heard of the Gen AI models like ChatGPT or Gemini or even now Grok. And there's reasoning models too as well. So that's the new data workflow for AI. And what's the impact? It's really high. We've seen processes, decisions, and creation of Gen AI, but really what's happening in industries is all the reasoning AI. What do I do next? So unless the data is organized correctly, it can't fit the model perfectly. And that's the perspective. And that's why projects will fail. Companies that embrace their data architecture on the front end have the best chance to succeed. Next chart. And David, if you want to go to the next chart. So the charts need to be straightforward. Data interoperability is the ability to take the RAG data, the index data, the massive amounts of data, and boil those down and make those specific. So you're not taking all of the data on a cost basis, but you need to move that over to the user value. And what are the users doing? Whoever harnesses the AI data wins. It's a competitive advantage to get your data organized, because that's where the competitive advantage. It's the industry-specific data that manages. It's the reasoning, it's everything that the industry-specific person needs to do. As an example, retail data from major retailers, box retailers, will be far different than telecom data. So the data has its own nature of specificity, both in terms of the metadata, the type of data, but most importantly, the context of the data. Today, models are measuring not only quality of data, type of data, format of data, most importantly, it's the context, the semantic power of the data. Which data comes first, which comes next? And when we look at telecom networks and start thinking about the impact of that, we need to harness the AI data. So the simple fact is that whoever harnesses the AI data in their realm wins. But the problem is that the data is often in a format built upon an old machine learning or an old relationship database. So it's in that context that give you kind of a quick perspective of data. But I think if I turn it over, in reality, most broadband companies don't really have clean, unified data because the broadband companies or ISPs in telecom are kind of historical as the data was built out. The question is, what does it look like for a typical provider? So I'd like to turn it over to Don, who's going to give us some perspective of what the provider really faces when he's looking at his data sets for interoperability. Don?
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to pick on a specific word Peter just said, context. Your data provides context. I like to think of all of the LLMs as kind of a brain. So it can think, but you've got to give it a lot of context to be able to help it think well. And it's going to magnify and enhance whatever you give it. So if you give it poor data, incomplete data, it's going to magnify and enhance that poor data or that incomplete data. So you have to be able to get the data correctly into there. So a couple of key things they need to work on. One is data silos. As we know in our area, a lot of things end up being in their own silo, whether that be systems that aren't talking. So an OSS BSS isn't talking to a CRM, or isn't talking to a GIS, or isn't talking to the accounting system or the construction project tools. So we've got each of these software tools that are all sitting out there that are kind of on an island that aren't interacting well together. So you have silos of data, or maybe data that isn't even in a system. Maybe data that's in Excel or an Access database or SharePoint folders. AI now gives us the ability to access and utilize unstructured data, so documents, notes, things like that, that are way easier to use than we ever could before from an IS perspective. And so getting access to all of your processes and procedures, all of your documents, things like that is important. The other thing is, if you have the data, is it dirty or is it clean? We all know addresses are a big problem in telecommunications. It's really hard to get the information together. How do you get that together to be able to create one set of unique addresses that everybody can rely on inside the company? Or inventory. Are you tracking your inventory well across what's in a truck, what's in a warehouse, what is being sent to a vendor to do the install for you, or as you're doing your service orders all the way through? And then GIS systems. So a lot of people are building a lot right now. So is the information coming in from the engineering organizations, whether that's internal or external, is it coming in and being input into the fiber management system well? Or is it degrading every time you do something? So it moves from the engineering system to the fiber management system, it degrades. It moves from the fiber management system to construction, it degrades. The as-built from construction don't get back into the fiber management system, it degrades. So making sure that you're having that across and maintain the data across. And the last one is processes. And really, how are you going to work and do your business? We all talk about this. We all talk about the idea of processes, but processes become even more critical as we do this. How are we going to define how systems are going to talk, how data is going to flow, how systems are going to be configured, and then those process documents themselves also become data, not just the results of them. So now you can actually connect AI into the process documents as well as the data and the systems to be able to create what you need in the end. So those are key areas. Data silos, dirty data, and undefined processes are really important. So Peter, what does that mean for our AI efforts? Why do so many initiatives fall short? Where have you seen progress?
Well, where I've seen it fall short is that if you say that you're getting data from your devices or boxes, that's one tube of data. You're getting data from your network in terms of what the network performance is over, say, a fiber line. That's another. And then you're getting data from your subscribers. Those historically were put together in 3 different databases and data sets. So to have them intertalk and have one master data is pretty difficult. And so what's happened is there's been cloud architectures that have been used, but the interoperability is really important. Now, working backwards from the subscriber, if we have a happy subscriber and we want to prevent churn as an example and be able to measure their experience, how is that measured? Well, you have to look at the network, but then you have to go into the CRM of their name, and then you have to measure their device. That's challenging to learn because now you've tapped into the three different databases, and the interoperability among them is different because you've got different training sets that you're learning against. But to have one big common training data set is pretty difficult. And so there's been low success rates. Where there has been success is when the data has been isolated, either on the subscriber end to say, hey, I want to learn which subscriber I can upsell to. That's effective. Or I want to learn which boxes may fail for predictive maintenance. That's effective. But now to have a common interoperability is pretty tough to do, and we're in the beginning phases to do that right now. And what's the reason? Because the data is not organized in such a way, or there's bad quality data and you can't manage it. Does that give a good sense, Don, of what you were talking about?
It did. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think the state of integration today, we need to start to think of what's the state of integration today, because we've got OSS, BSS to manage, we have devices to manage, and we have the optimization of the network. Jeff, I'm wondering kind of how you see it on your side of how we can move ahead with that.
Sure, Peter. The bottom line about that today is there's very little consistency in approach among the typical integrations at an ISP. The typical integration today is a bespoke point-to-point integration directly between applications and databases and devices. That integration is typically developed and maintained by an application vendor or a systems integrator.
Exactly.
And the design and technology that they're using is typically determined by the person developing the integration. Another thing to think about with integrations in the typical sense today is that these integrations pass data required to accomplish tasks in a process or workflow. Most integrations haven't been designed to aggregate data or combine data from different sources that can be used to provide robust insights and decisions. So probably most important about all of this is they are maintenance intensive. These integrations are fragile, require frequent maintenance to adapt. They have to adapt to accept software updates, device updates, all kinds of different changes. And another important consideration is the average integration between two applications today has a lifetime total cost of ownership of over $600,000 average amongst the industry. Another thing is, we alluded to earlier as Don was talking, and you as well, integrations today typically focus on workflows and business processes, not real automation. There's no holistic domain-based view of the integrations the ISPs rely on, and they're most often implemented without considering any other integrations deployed or planned. And it may not be obvious, but the effort and costs of managing multiple integrations, multiple suppliers, et cetera, to achieve what you're trying to do is likely way more than you might think. Automation is where AI performs best, from what we've learned so far. So AI's power lies in its ability to process and learn from vast amounts of data. When faced with the limited siloed data inputs that we have, common in the industry today, AI only can provide narrow outputs, niche use cases, and it fails to generate substantial value. If we're going to harness the true power of AI, integration is key to getting that done. Connecting the disparate systems, orchestrating the data flow, it all provides the access to the data that's required across the enterprise. I would say the fundamental first step that people need to think about as they're approaching getting their data in order and combining it for AI uses is to take ownership of the company's integrations. Don't outsource it, don't pass it to vendors. take direct responsibility for that. Just like an enterprise needs a enterprise data strategy like Don and team talk about frequently, it follows that an enterprise needs an integration strategy as well, because that's the roadmap to implementing the data strategy. So Don, given all of those integration challenges, excuse me, all those integration challenges, how are companies preparing or starting to prepare for the systems and data so they're actually AI ready?
Sure, yeah. So we start kind of where we said earlier in terms of the data, right? We've been talking about that for a while. Beyond, once you have starting to get your data silos out, you're starting to clean up your data, then, and we alluded to it last time, you need to document your processes. So you need to document your processes across your organization at a high level and a somewhat low level, that you're actually going through and saying, how are these organizations going to work, to then allow you to define what systems you need if you're selecting systems, or maybe you're taking the systems you already have and you need to configure them based on those processes. You need to then integrate them based on those processes, and you need to have the data flow based on those processes. So those processes really give you the ability to put all the systems together, have the data flow together like it is, or like it needs to be, so that it's actually working together. We've actually been working with several clients where they bought new systems, but then they're like, wait, now what? The systems aren't doing what we needed to do. And it's because you got to take a step back, get the processes in place, and get all a plan of how that's going to work together. Next thing is defining your terms. It's often where people say a passing and don't necessarily mean the same thing. The board may call a passing in one thing. The executives may call passing something else. Construction may call passing something else. So defining what your terms are, what they mean across the company when you say a passing, when you say churn, when you say serviceable, when you say sold, when you say connected, what do those things mean to the organization, and defining them well. Already, I'm sure you guys have seen where people see reports and they're not sure if they trust them. AI, if you don't define that, will make that worse, not better. So you need to have a well-defined set of terms, what this means, how we're going to define it, how we're reporting on it, so that you're getting the information out like you need to. Once you take those processes, you define those terms, you then define your requirements for what you need. Talking about the systems, whether it's a selection or an organization of the systems or a configuration of the system, configuring those systems like you need to put them together, and what you need ultimately to start layering on top of that. And then defining a data strategy. So what is the system of record for customers? What's the system of record for addresses? What's the system of record for network assets? What integrations are you going to put together? Where are you going to store the data? Are you going to create a data lake to have a common data set that sits in one place? And then once you start pulling all that together, building a gold data set or a high trust data set, so that you can say, once you've now got, okay, I've got clear processes, I know what a passing means, I know I've got my systems connected together and I've got the right data in the right place, pulling them all together so that people can start doing querying, asking questions of the organization, of the information, and getting answers that you can trust, that you can then use AI to leverage and enhance and accelerate without worry of getting the wrong answers coming out of that. So then finally, now that we have these, you can start layering on AI. What we're currently doing to try and help with the lack of success of AI implementation is we're picking very specific implementations. So we're picking very specific use cases where we can actually measure and say, we can go put in AI in this case, here's what it was, here's what it is now. Are we seeing the benefit we want out of that? So instead of just broadly peanut buttering it across the organization or just saying we want to put AI into everything, find the cases where you actually think you're going to see benefit, where you actually feel like you can see enhancement, whether it be you're getting better executive reporting, whether it be your CSRs are getting better coaching, or whatever the things are that you need to say, we can go in and test this, we can see what's going on, and we can clearly show there is an ROI for this expense of putting this in place, so that you actually get the benefit of demand forecasting or predictive maintenance or automating customer interactions or various different things. But having a defined problem that you are going to go after and solve and measure is a big deal. So once the foundation's in place, the next question is tools. With so many options out there, predictive, generative, agent-based, how should providers think about matching the right AI approach to the right use case, Peter?
Yeah, great question. Just back up to kind of validate what you said is that AI is all what you're going to do. What do you want to learn? How do you want to train your data? And then, what's the outcome from that? I just want to bring a statistic from McKinsey from last week in their AI State of the AI report. They said that just about over 20% of companies are managing their data and actually doing AI projects, but that are moving to implementation or production. But over 80% of CIOs, 2,000 CIOs, are trying to do something. Where the failure is that when they don't do specific use cases and they try to boil the ocean, if you will, for AI. So the first thing to understand your tools is to understand what tool are you trying to use for what purpose. The pervasive growth area in telecom is in the area of marketing and sales revenue, because it's easiest to do. It's tied to the CRM, the customer relationship management system, and you can manage that. So really selecting tools is really three things. Number one, a tool that can continue to manage your data sources or database. That can be big or small. You need to have some management there. So Snowflake, cloud services, Databricks, all have great tool sets around managing the data. And I would recommend them. On cloud, it's Azure, Google, or AWS. All of those tool sets work pretty well to get that managed enough to be able to feed to AI. So you have to basically say, what tool set is available to me from my cloud provider? The second area is selecting the tools that manage the models, and that you basically will have to use a tool that can create RAG-based data, which is the data that is retrieval augmented data. You're going to have that as a separate data set. And tools are available to change that and manage that. One tool that is the hottest thing today in AI is MCP, Model Context Protocol. It basically is like a universal bus to allow different applications to come into your AI model without having necessarily to do an API. That's critical to do because many times you've got your tools there, application-facing tools that want to do something, but they're trapped because you can't write specific AI or things against it. So MCP is a really big choice, and there's a lot of choices of MCP out there. One in particular is called Unifying, done by USI as an example, but there's many established by IBM and cloud. So the bottom line is, in summary, of the tools you have to choose is get your database and data sources kitted out. Number two, look at how you can get your data feeding the model for training on a very specific level. And then finally, the most important tool for application is MCP. Is you need to have MCPs that accept the application, so you can take your learned data and coordinate back and forth with the applications on the front end. And that begins to unlock the potential where data interoperability is seen on the front end of clear quality data, but it's also seen in the back end because you can have interoperable application data. Is that, I didn't want to make it too complex, but is that pretty straightforward, Don and Jeff, or what are you thinking?
Yeah. I might pick up on the tool thing there a little bit, just talk about a little bit on modernization, if you will, or modernizing integration in the enterprise. One of the tools that is gaining momentum in the industry and business in general is an enterprise integration platform, or an EIP. And an EIP brings together a lot of the things that you've just been describing into a solution that connects and unifies the enterprise data across all the application systems, etc. It's basically the tool that breaks down the information silos that we're all working with. And it's gaining quite a bit of acceptance in terms of companies that are beginning to own their enterprise integration strategy. One of the things, in order to get started in modernization, and let's look at it from the integration perspective, that fundamental first step is to take the ownership. Take it away from the vendors. The truth of the matter is most software vendors, et cetera, really would like to get out of the integration business. And taking ownership of it yourself allows you to turn integration, the ability to do them, into a competitive advantage. You can make innovation and agility possible, whether it's in product strategies, new services, sales techniques, et cetera. That EIP is the toolkit to do that. But as you go along that, there's several things to consider. You've touched on some, but let me kind of pick up on these. The first one is you've got to make sure the tools in your software stacks and your technology stacks have electronically modern consumable API specifications. There are a number of standards and technologies out there, but there are still some, still some applications in particular that don't have really fleshed out APIs. And that makes it difficult to pull the data together from those particular applications. So you want to take a look at that first and foremost as part of your strategy and your planning. You mentioned MCP, and I have that on my list as well, that protocols that accept, that facilitate the communication between the AI agents, the external services, the data that you're looking to get contextual, that needs to be part of your planning and consideration as you're going through it, because MCP is particularly important when you're wanting to combine external data sets with your own internal. Something as simple as getting current weather data to consider as you're doing your route planning in a field service organization, something like that. Another thing that we've been talking about quite a bit lately is a shift to a holistic sort of domain-based view of data and AI strategy. And that's building your integrations and your AI plans around broader functional areas as opposed to just workflows and processes. Don was picking up on that and going through that earlier in his session. And then consider what data is actually appropriate for the learning models and things that you are planning.
Yeah, that's a big point. Yeah.
Yeah. And in particular, and I know, Peter, you can talk about this as well, but there are benefits and considerations for both small learning models and large learning models. LLMs are expensive and take a lot of resource and sometimes can overwhelm. SLMs sometimes give you better, more accurate answers and has a different whole sort of deployment consideration and cost consideration. Picking and deploying an EIP, there are several things that you want to take a look at. Make sure you've considered in your decision. They're going to provide you a centralized data access technology and capability. All the models need high quality data sets to provide and train for accurate results. Contextualization, we just talked about MCP. You want to make sure that the data sources are appropriate for the particular kinds of agents and outcomes you're looking for. Goes without saying, it's been mentioned several times already, they're going to give you high quality real-time data. They clean the data, they validate data, and they standardize data as part of their processes. And maybe not as obvious, you want to look and make sure the enhanced security capabilities that are there in a EIP decision or a platform. These platforms can help enforce compliance standards, things like robust access controls, the encryption, and the audit trails that help when something does happen. And last,
and is it hard to do? As I'm listening, I don't mean to interrupt, but is okay. how is it for implementation? Because our audience is probably listening and saying, okay, good, I want to do that. But what does that mean for my workforce development knowledge? Because they have to keep the lights on and keep implementing the current network. Is it hard to implement and transition over? I think cost, time, and just people's knowledge. Where's the challenge there? How do you see that?
Well, one thing that's good about an EIP is you don't have to do it in a big project. You can do it in phases, and begin to pick, as Don was talking about in his last piece there, where you pick very sort of narrow focus kind of things that you can get reasonable expectations on what it's going to provide for you, and you can start there and build over time. And pick an integration that either is due up for maintenance or something like that. And rather than invest there, you can move it over to the EIP. The EIP, for the most part, until you get ready to push it out into an organization, which we'll talk about in a minute, the EIP, for the most part, works in the background, is supported by your tech staff and those kinds of things. So the reality, the work is in data cleansing, organization, the things you two guys have been talking about. Once that's there, implementing the EIP is not a terribly extensive project. If you've picked an EIP that has AI as part of it, meaning it uses AI to build the integrations, then you've got the ability to move this into or push it out into the user community, if you will. And that's one of the big benefits that you can get to that'll enable AI to go to the next level in a lot of situations. So imagine I can actually push the capability to create an integration between various data points in the enterprise out to a customer service supervisor who actually is the user or the benefit or get the benefit of a lot of the AI that's out there. If you could give those people the ability to create their own integrations that they're going to use in their own job responsibilities, that is sort of the ultimate end game for where we're headed now, and gives everybody, it democratizes integration, like we talk about democratizing data. There's where you get to the user community. And there's one thing I've learned in this journey over the last couple of years, and that is AI is culture change by definition. And that's something we have to think about as we go through any of these activities with AI, is that we are changing the culture. And there is probably the biggest area to focus on as we really get into full deployment of EIPs and AI in the enterprise. That give you
I wanted to, I'm not controlling, but jump over to Don and Paul Connolly asked the question about what are the pressing problems that you see for ISPs today from CORE's point of view? What problems are being solved that really move the needle for the ISPs?
Yeah, that's a great question, Paul. So I'll tell you some of the first places that we're starting and testing. Like I was saying, we're trying to pick cases that we can measure well and see what's happening. So one of the first places we're doing it is actually an AI data analyst. As we've been talking about getting your data ready, getting it prepared, and getting it where you can go, you want to limit that to a very specific organization that can test it and help it grow, but you can accelerate the benefits of your data team being able to evaluate data, start analyzing the data, and then finally start being able to create some questioning and some reporting that's going out. So that tool then also enables unlocking the organization to ask questions of your data like it hasn't been able to before. So in the past, you had to go to the IT organization or a reporting organization or a fairly set dashboard. If you can have things like this, you can actually start being able to say, hey, a person can query, like in your marketing, hey, what's going on with these customers in this area? What can I do with these? And do that across the board. The other one that we're seeing a lot of people do is CSRs. So being able to get the data in, be able to automate that. CSRs are a highly measured organization as it is already. So you can fairly easily measure how the performance is today versus applying AI on there. You can measure the performance afterwards and see what the difference is. And we're seeing some pretty big improvements in those organizations. So those are two quick ones. There's others, but those are two quick ones that are out there as well. Do you know some others, Peter or Jeff?
Yeah, the one I see is that's very successful, and we don't want to necessarily talk about problems. There's some successes, is in quality. We're seeing a great growth in just taking data from voice to and chat over to text and capturing that, boiling that down, and giving an edge to service people. And that's interesting because that's more dynamic. It's not quite real time, but we're seeing ISPs are seeing that as golden on a quality basis where they can say, hey, this is what's happening. And that's easy to implement. So there's some quick wins where, as I mentioned, CRM, that's impactful. Quality, getting just boiling down what's happening and basically doing AI to search that. And the third area from all three major manufacturers in the device area, Calix, Adtran, and Nokia, is in predictive maintenance. So this is not necessarily ops, it's actually looking at the devices. And so we're seeing the ISPs beginning to embrace that because they can see immediate. Now, the reason why all of those three succeed is the data sets are small, you can train against them, you can learn, and then that becomes bespoke for the network. On the operational side, like Jeff was saying, an enterprise integration for interoperability has to come for the future. But I think ISPs are trying to get some quick wins to say, hey, I'm getting some value out of the AI curve right now.
And yeah, that's where I would circle back to the do some of what we're talking about in phases. You can deploy this kind of strategy in very small early increments, which is exactly how it should be done, and learn yourself, so to speak, and spread those out as they do, as they become available. I'll throw one more out if you don't mind. We hear a lot about human in the loop. We hear a lot about the scare of job losses, those kinds of things. How do each of you see the day-to-day roles, jobs, function of the organization, the people in it changing as a result of some of these AI initiatives? Don, I'll start with you, but Peter, you're next.
Yeah, so I think the more I work with this stuff, the more I think having the creativity of a human is going to be important. Having the ability to interact with other humans is going to be important. I think it will automate some things to some extent, but I don't think it eliminates everything. Because having that creativity, the ability to think, the ability to be able to communicate, the ability to be able to work with others, to be able to see each other, to read emotions, the human things we talk about, I think is going to become more important actually as we go through and do some of this stuff. I'm seeing where we're working with some different AI models and they get you a good part of the way there, but they don't get you all the way there. We're still having to go have a conversation with an individual who's an expert in this particular place, or work together as a team to be able to finish out that last 10% or 20% or whatever the number is, to be able to get the full answer. So I think they're good tools. I think they're definitely accelerators, but I don't think they completely eliminate the humans and where we're at.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's a question of how we see humans. I would say just bang, bang. Number one, AI literacy must increase. It's a skill set that's beyond knowing how to do an Excel spreadsheet. Everybody has to have a literacy. I know major organizations like FBA, as an example, is creating an AI literacy course for their members, but it's no excuse. We have to get to a literacy to understand AI as part of our tool set and how we're going to use that with our data interoperability. But three areas I would say, number one is industry-specific knowledge for context exactly what, Don, you were mentioning. Context is really important. We can manage the data, but the context of the data, the semantics of the data are industry specific. Secondly is security. Security has to have a human in the loop because there has to be decisions made about what you're going to protect and what you're not going to protect because you can't protect anything. And the final thing is operational service. I think the role of the field technician of getting information after the fact to protect the network is going to shift into more proactive network management because they have the tool sets, especially what you were mentioning, Jeff, from the enterprise integration. So humans in the loop in the next 2 or 3 years will be really important. And no automation, no orchestrator is going to replace that person. And we feel like on workforce, we're going to replace certain humans on the team. On the contrary, we're going to need more humans on the team to manage these really fantastic, speedy systems because of the need for throughput, latency, and applications. We're going to actually need more people. So it's a great opportunity in our industry.
All right, guys, we're nearing up the end of our time. Let's do a speed round. What's the final thought or final takeaway? Don, you start.
Yeah, just take a step back and see where you're at first. There's a lot of push, and I think rightly so, to get AI. But take a step back and do a real evaluation yourself or get some help to say, where are you? What are your gaps? Figure out those gaps. Then start figuring out specific use cases where you can layer in AI and really see a difference.
Peter?
Mine is what I said before in the charts is whoever manages and owns the data and harnesses the data wins. It's a competition. So we may be looking at all the really cool AI applications, but whoever manages the data is going to win and gain a competitive edge. And it's just so obvious to me.
I'll add one, and that is leverage experience. One of the things that I've seen in some of the studies and some of the analysis that have been done is that there is a high percentage of success with AI initiatives when you're leveraging people who have done it before, whether that's within your own organization, whether that's systems integrators, consultants, or software vendors. It's over 60% success rate for people who are trying to leverage experience. And I'll give a quick shout out at the end here to the TMF, who happens to have some good resources as well to help open data architecture, open APIs, etc. They're useful. If you'll give me just, you'll humor me for a moment, a little picture at the end just to let you know. ETI is a company that's focused on solving integration and interoperability challenges for broadband service providers specifically. Our product, Intelligrate, is a low-code broadband native integration development and management solution. Creates integrations from any electronically consumable APIs using templates that are based on the industry best practices. And Intelligrate can connect your apps, your databases, and your network devices in real time. If that's of interest to you, we'd love to tell you about it. With that, we very much appreciate all of you joining us for the conversation. Peter, Don, David, thank you all.
And you want to mention the white paper we have for them? The white paper is available in the resource.
I forgot about that. Go ahead. My apologies.
Yeah, so we actually have a white paper that Peter and I co-wrote that's available for you guys to download. It gives you a lot of information about AI and data. It's available to people who are attending this today, so feel free to download this.
Thanks for that. Sorry.
That's fine.
David?
Okay. The white paper talks about the data and the choices that we talked about here specifically, and it's really data interoperability in the age of AI, the choices you have to make. So it's quite 7-page deep. We're quite proud of it. So I hope you take a look at it.
All right. Well done. David?
So, hi there, gentlemen. Great job. And we do have a few questions that came in from the attendees here. Did we want to some of those as well?
Sure. time allows.
So you've answered this a couple different ways, but somebody's asking, what is the most pressing set of problems or opportunities for ISPs that AI can address?
I think we hit that one with Paul. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add for that.
No problem. And I think we actually might have covered the rest here as well.
I see one from Melissa. She was asking about the EIP. So Melissa, short answer is yes, you need to get your data integrated and together to then be able to use an AI data analyst. So you are going to need to do what Jeff's been talking about, integrating your data across the systems, putting them into a common repository, a data store of some kind, that you can then start layering in and help you do that. So the short answer is yes. And
yeah, Melissa, just as one other point to add to Don, you don't have, again, we talked about doing it in phases. You don't necessarily have to go deploy a full EIP for everything when you get started. You can start it on a single use case if that's where you're at this point in time, but you do it in a way that those use cases are done in a very similar, if not identical kind of way as you implement future phases. And eventually what you get to is you've gotten to a critical mass or a tipping point where you say, okay, I'm going to do the total platform approach. But you can do this on an individual use case basis.
David, Mark is saying he doesn't see the white paper and the resources.
So there is the ebook is in the resources from ETI. If the white paper is not there, yeah. So the ebook is in there, but the white paper will include that link for the white paper in the follow-up email that everybody will receive within 24 hours. And it'll also be on the replay site. So we'll make sure that everybody does have a copy of that. And with that, I just want to once again thank our presenters today, thank our panelists, and of course, thank ETI Software for hosting today's webinar. We appreciate that. And just want to invite everybody to go out to our website, look under the events tab there and see what else we have coming up in terms of webinars. We look forward to seeing you on these future webinars. And again, thank you very much for attending. We appreciate it. Bye now.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.